Welcome to Looking at Legal Stuff. Today we have 10 hearings in a case with a couple where dad is trying to establish parenting time with his 12-year-old son after missing out for years because mom faked the child's paternity test to allow her husband to be named the father instead. Now that dad has had his parental rights restored by the courts, mom is accusing dad of everything horrible she can think of and tries every trick possible to keep them apart. And that's just the start of this circus. Let's see what the judge will think of this mess.
Garrett Alton and Ashley Keefe.
I'm here, Your Honor.
Right,
I'm here too. Real fast, his girlfriend is on here and she's not involved in the case. Is she allowed to be on here?
Well, she can't participate. I guess if she's listening in,
She's just.
I'm not going to object to that.
Okay.
Then she needs to be in his camera.
I'm just looking at my notes here. All right, there's a motion for adequate cause. And just one moment here. I want to pull it up on the computer.
Just leave it open. Just leave it open. It's fine.
All right, that is brought by Mr. Alton. So why don't I hear from Mr. Alton on the motion for adequate cause, and then I'll hear a response from Ms. Keefe.
Yeah, that's for the email from J. Opgrand and from CPS, correct?
Well,
I put
March 16th, you filed a motion for adequate cause to change the parenting plan.
Yes.
And
there's been a lot of stuff going on. Landon has not ended school. I haven't seen Landon in months. I've attempted several times to make contact with Landon. I messaged him on Facebook, and everything was fine up until I served Ashley paperwork. And since then, she has tried to alienate myself and my family from Landon's life. I filed paperwork proving in Ashley's response to my papers that I filed that her response is basically an entire lie. I have an email from J. Opgrand stating that there has been no reports of Landon ever being bullied at school. As of yesterday, they unrolled Landon from Mount Solo Middle School because he is at 20 unexcused absences. There was one call right before spring break, and I find it very coincidental that the call was after I served Ashley paperwork. Now she's trying to go in and make steps to get Landon enrolled in homeschool. But up until I served her papers, there had been no attempts, and he was not attending school at all. Ashley states in her response that she thought that I grew up, and so she was going to give me a chance with Landon, which that is all a complete lie. There's a Kelso police report from Judge Basher that he returned in to the Kelso police detectives because of what had happened in this case. Ashley faking a paternity test that she signed under the perjury of law. And then now she's signing a response basically saying that none of this stuff had happened. And she signs that saying that this is a legal document and she's not lying, but there's several instances where she is lying. There's also a statement from Wayne Anglin, who is a counselor, that from Ashley's previous custody case with her son Eli, and the counselor states right in the bottom of it that it appears that Ashley is coaching him to lie about everything bad that happens at her home. I submitted messages between me and Landon that it's very apparent that it's not me and Landon talking. It's Ashley trying to get stuff for her court case. And that just goes to prove that she's coaching Landon and is manipulating Landon through this entire process to alienate me from his life. Me and Landon have a great relationship.
When did you last see him?
I believe it was in September, there right after I served her the paperwork for the decision to decide parentage.
And
Before that, he did not show up.
You were before me on the protection order, I remember. And so you and Landon have been texting to some extent.
Yeah, I talked to him, asked him how school's going, tell him I love him, ask him, you know, hey, when are you going to come see us? There was a few times when we were at softball that he would, because they lived in the apartments right in front of the softball fields. We saw him at the softball fields a couple times. My mom has made attempts to have visitation with Landon. My mom and Landon have a very great relationship. My mom supported Landon and been there for Landon. Since Ashley falsified a paternity test and the truth came out, my whole family has been very close to Landon. His cousin, I submitted pictures of him and his cousins at the beach together. They play Xbox games all the time. They stay the night at each other's houses all the time. And since the paperwork has been served, Landon's attitude is completely changed, and it's 110% because of what Ashley is doing to him. And my father is a registered sex offender. She brought that up. I wasn't able to submit it, but I do have an email from his counselor stating that there are safety measures in place. He can see his grandkids. My dad does voluntary counseling. He has not been required to be in counseling for the last 2 or 3 years, I believe, but he still maintains going, and I have never left Landon alone with him. He's been around my dad a handful of times, a couple of times with Ashley. When Ashley and I were together, we met my dad up at Chuck's Grocery, and he helped us out to pay our rent for the month. And Ashley was there. She was talking to him, and now that she needs stuff for court, it's not okay. And it's getting thrown in as something that she has nothing. I've been a great dad. I've been there for him. I've done as much as I can for the time given that Landon and I have had together. And Ashley is the one that took those years away from Landon and I when she falsified a paternity test when he was 2 years old. And she took that time from us, and now was trying to make things right. But now that there's serious matters in the case of Landon's protection, his mental health, everything, she's trying to get everything and anything she can to use against me.
Yeah,
and
let me ask a question. Is your mother and your father still together?
they're divorced. They're civil with each other. They talk almost daily.
But they don't live together.
No, they do not.
Okay.
They do not live together. Yeah, that's
Okay. All right. Mr. Alton, you'll have a chance to respond, but I think I'd like to hear from Ms. Keith at this point.
Okay. So first off, I've never been okay with his father ever. He would call my phone and I would ignore him while he was in prison. We did meet to go borrow some money from him because Garrett would refuse to work as always. So we went and had him help us out. And I believe Landon literally only said hi if he was even there. I can hardly remember that.
Whatever I do, I'm going to prevent the father from seeing the child.
Okay,
That
thank
might
you.
change after a guardian ad litem report, but I'm not gonna. We don't have to spend much time on that issue.
Okay,
I'm
thank
not gonna
you.
allow it.
Also, I've already explained that Landon is being homeschooled. I don't know where he's getting his information again. I've been planning this since before I took him out of school. He'd been begging me. I let him stay home a couple days while we were trying to figure it out, and we talked it through. And I did talk. I still haven't turned it in. We're moving and stuff, and it's just been really hectic, and then the court stuff. So I am turning that paperwork in. I actually just talked to somebody that texted me yesterday, and I told them that I would get it in as soon as possible, and they were completely okay with it. I also spoke to the detectives about the falsified paternity test. That thing is completely over. It's been over. I did have the opportunity
You
to get
accept at this point, Mr. Alton is the father.
biologically, but not legally. He has a legal father that is not Garrett. So I was going to actually ask for.
What do you mean by that?
He has somebody on his birth certificate that is not Garrett, and so that parentage stuff that it has to be a void. He cannot do that. We tried to talk to lawyers. He had to adopt Landon, so he has a legal father that is not Garrett.
Who had to adopt Landon?
My ex-husband, or well, Garrett had to adopt Landon because my ex-husband
You're saying
is.
Mr. Alton, as the biological father, has to adopt Landon
Yes, that's what the lawyers all said.
because you put the wrong father on the birth certificate.
Yes, because it'd been too long. Garrett got into heroin and stuff, and he wasn't around.
All right. Well, the court has entered an order indicating that Mr. Alton is the father of Landon.
And I was
order is what's going to stand, and he is legally the father and has all the rights of a father.
Okay, but I didn't get served a court date. I got served half the paperwork, and she told me she would give me the rest of the paperwork. So I wasn't even informed of a court date for that.
Well, there's an order entered by Judge Hahn establishing that Mr. Alton is the father. If you want to challenge that order, then there may be ways to do that. But as far as this hearing is concerned, I'm going to accept that Mr. Alton is the father, and I'm going to make decisions as if he's the father.
Okay.
So if you have concerns about Mr. Alton, you can tell me, but I'm not going to entertain the argument that he doesn't have a right to see Landon.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
So you haven't, well, Landon hasn't seen Mr. Alton for some period of time.
Yeah, he chose not to. I've never once told him not to talk to them, even when Garrett's mother lied, because they have a very serious issue with lying. And so she lied to the GAL. And
but if it was his choice, according to you, then do you have any problem with me ordering visits between Landon and Mr. Alton at this point?
Absolutely. That will be completely detrimental. Landon wants nothing to do with him.
Okay.
It's right here.
Do you want me to go get him from his room and hear from him?
No, I don't want to do that. I don't like to put children in between their parents.
I wouldn't either, but he cries and doesn't want to go there. And I'm getting told that they're taking him from me. So it's kind of a big deal.
This is the same thing that Ashley pulled with Brock Jenke in their case.
Okay, Mr. Alton, I do want to hear from you, but I want to make sure I've heard everything Ms. Keefe wants to say first, okay?
That's nothing like that case. Brock was through the GAL from Keith Lawrence. Brock had been abusing mentally and all of that and started to get physical with my son. And so when we went to court, he was trying to take both of my kids, and knowing Landon was not his, I ended up getting him away from him, and he had the right to choose too. And Garrett actually got mad that he would go see him. Garrett was the one that put the strain in between Brock and Landon. He refused. I probably have messages that I could send you later or something, but I don't trust him. I know that he has drug issues with heroin. I know that he freaks out all the time. He was horrible to me while we were together all the time. Landon has no relationship with him. He came home running from the park, which he says that he was talking to him while they were playing softball, came home, locked the door, and said his dad was here. before I got served the paperwork the first time. He does not want anything to do with them. They
All right.
harass him. They bully him. They talk about me. They talk about how they got Eli taken away from me. Like it's completely it's a hostile environment, and he's not that kind of kid. Like he can't handle that stuff.
Okay, I'm getting close to knowing what I'm going to do. I'm going to give Mr. Alton a chance, about 2 minutes to respond, and then I'm going to tell you what we're going to do going forward.
Okay.
Mr. Alton.
Yeah. So, I just find it very odd that there's a GAO report from the original case that says that Ashley states she's so sorry for what she did. She was in the
Sorry. Sorry.
Ms. Keefe.
Again.
Thanks.
She seemed like at the time when there was something that I could do about it, she was very sorry for what had happened. And now that things are coming out and Landon, I know that Landon loves his mom, and I know that Landon loves me as well. There are serious matters that are going on at Ashley's house. This whole thing that she's concocted is just, it's insane. I mean, she lied on a paternity test and took me away from my son, and comes back and tells me that she's so sorry for what had happened and she wants to make things right. And we went through and we filed an original decision to decide parentage with Brock on there, and that didn't go through. But Ashley, it was the same documents that went through for the decision to decide parentage that got approved. And instead, the first time Ashley, she signed the document saying that she was fine with it. The courts, that case was left open because I couldn't do much on it. And so the courts actually ended up closing that case. I tried to find where she signed off on everything. She knew what was going on. She is very aware of what's happening. She knows the things that are going on in her house are not okay. Landon not attending school is not okay. Her, I was a good dad. I helped her out as much as I can. I've given her money to pay bills, get food for her kids, and everything. And I never once asked for a penny back. I was there to help her when she needed it. And now that things should be getting made right, she wants to revoke everything and turn me out to be this negligent father, which I'm not. I love my son very much, and I just want to see my son and get him back to where he was a year ago when Ashley and I were co-parenting well. He was going to school. His mental health was great. He needs to see a counselor still, and I want to request that we get him into counseling as soon as possible and get him enrolled in school as soon as possible as well.
Okay.
That's all I have.
I appreciate that.
Garrett has never helped me with a single thing.
Ms. Keefe,
Sorry.
I need to make a decision here. Okay. All right. So the motion is a motion for adequate cause, which usually is brought to change an existing parenting plan. But in this case, what we have is a judgment by Judge Hahn establishing Mr. Alton's parentage, but reserving the aspect of the parenting plan that the two of you may have going forward. I see there's some proposed parenting plans put in place, but no parenting plan has been entered. So we don't really need a motion for adequate cause. This case ultimately needs to be set for a trial to determine what the appropriate parenting plan is. Before we get there, I would typically appoint a guardian ad litem to investigate both parties. And their job is to advise the court what's in the best interest of Landon. So I'm going to give you 3 names, and you have the right to exclude one of the names if you want. So the 3 names of the guardian ad litem are
Keith Lawrence, Heather Call, and Amy Turnbull.
right. So
that Keith Lawrence be on this case, as he was
No, I want to strike him.
he knows the case already.
It's a conflict of interest. He didn't even talk to my people in my last
okay,
court
you don't
battle.
have to either. You don't have to state a reason. You
Okay.
can say I don't want somebody.
Okay. I don't want Keith Lawrence.
All right. So if she did, do you know either of the other people, Mr. Alton?
No, I don't. I was requesting Keith because he has already built a relationship and knows Landon from this first case that Ashley, Brock, and Eli were involved in.
I
That was
understand
5
that can cut both ways. And as I said, that for no reason, either of you get to strike one person. So
Okay.
Ms. Keith has struck Keith Lawrence. Then we usually go to the second person, and that's Heather Call.
Okay.
And so I'm going to, and that's KAHL. I'm going to appoint her to be the guardian ad litem.
Okay.
So
thank you.
let me just tell you the process that's going to happen. The guardian ad litem will do a report. I'm going to probably check in on that about 2 more times. I'll give you a review date, and then at that time, we'll set another review date. Once the guardian ad litem has a report or is close to a report, then I'm going to have you set a trial date so that you can put on evidence before one of the judges to determine the parenting plan, unless you can agree to one. But that not being the case, then you would have to go to trial. Prior to that, and between now and the first review with the guardian ad litem, I'm not going to order any contact between Landon and Mr. Alton. There hasn't been contact for a while. Where there's been such a gap in contact, regardless of what caused it, usually we need to take some pretty thoughtful steps in order to reunite a child with the parent. And I want some assistance from Ms. Call on how we should go about doing that. So I'm not going to order any in-person visits at this point. Okay. And I think that's how we go forward.
Okay. Thank you.
All right.
Is there a
Mr.
way
Alton?
that I can talk to him on the phone?
You've always been able to call him, Garrett.
All right. I will put in the order that your telephone calls are acceptable. Okay.
Okay.
And if he doesn't choose to answer those, is that on him, or do I have to
Yeah.
make him?
Usually we let the child decide whether they're going to talk or not.
Okay.
We don't force kids to be
Do
involved.
anything. Okay.
Okay, but certainly, Mr. Alton, you can make the phone call. Okay. Okay. Well, I have to give you a review date, and I think we need to go at least a month out. So that will be May 11th at 9 o'clock.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Thank you both.
All right.
Thank
Thank you.
And then Ashley Keefe.
I'm here.
I'm here.
All right. Good morning.
Good morning.
And Ms. Call, are you with us? There we go.
I am. Good morning, Hero.
All right. I think I want to hear from Ms. Call first, if you've been able to contact the parties and talk to them, and then we'll go from there.
I have. Both parties have paid their portion of the gal fee and turned in their intake paperwork. They've both been properly communicative. I have home visits scheduled with both of them on Friday. And I'm also looking forward to meeting Kiddo on that day as well. So I'll be in to do a home visit and get to interview all 3 of them at that point in time. I was
That's
able
tomorrow,
to.
Tomorrow,
Yes,
Friday.
tomorrow,
Okay.
Friday. Yes, thank you. I forgot tomorrow's Friday already. I was able to receive some added information from Mr. Alton that he wanted to share with me, documents, things like that. I've been reading through the case file, read through both intake documents, so we're well on the road.
Okay, and it looks like there's phone calls that are supposed to be happening. How have they been going?
He only messaged him the day of court and said, "I love you," and Landon didn't respond, and he has not reached out since then.
Okay, let's hear from Mr. Alton. Go ahead.
I've reached out a couple times, and I messaged him on Facebook because he doesn't have a phone, and the messages get read and hasn't been a reply.
All right, I think what I need to do is wait for Ms. Call to finish her report before I'm able to make some additional decisions in this case. I'm going to note that in looking over the file, I am concerned about the status of Landon's education, and I think that needs to be looked at and explained when we get together again.
Okay.
I'm going to allow Mr. Alton to continue to reach out to Landon, but if he doesn't respond, then I don't know if there's I can require that.
Your Honor, can we request that Mr. Alton use one of the family apps that would allow him to communicate and have those communications recorded, or even allow me to observe?
Which one, or do you want to name
Family
it?
Wizard. Yeah, Family Wizard would be great if that's an option.
Yeah, I have that one.
Okay. Mr. Alton, could you get Family Wizard on your phone and then use that to communicate?
Yeah, I think that's a better option for sure.
Okay. So, Ms. Call, how long do you think you'll need before your report will be ready?
I think we're on schedule to have the report done on time. I don't think we're, unless something comes up in the investigation in the next couple of days that makes that difficult. I think and the things, what I've informed the parties of that helps a lot is if they have things like school records, if they have things like, I have access to the court documents that have been filed, but if you have access to CPS reports, things like that, because those things can take a while to come and to be delivered, that can extend the issue. But if you're able to provide me with those things, then it keeps us on track timing wise.
All right, I'm looking for the order of appointment. So I indicated a final review of June 29th. Does that still sound realistic?
As long as I can get access to those reports, particularly the school reports and the CPS documents. I understand there was another guardian ad litem report written for another child in the family, and I'd like to be able to read through that as well. As long as I can get access to those documents in a timely manner, I don't see a reason why we couldn't have the report done on time.
I can send you those.
Okay.
Okay, good. All right, well then the next hearing will be June 20th.
Your Honor. Okay, number 3 and 4, 22-3-00493-08. This is a motion hearing for extension and deadline for final report. Do we have Garrett Alton?
Yep, I'm here, Your Honor.
Okay, do I have Ashley Keefe?
Yeah, I'm here too.
Okay, and let's see. And is it Kahl? K-A-H-L?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. All right. So this is a request for the extension of the deadline for the final guardian ad litem report and 5 additional hours to be split evenly. Anyone have anything that they wanted to say? I've already read the file. I know what the request is. Anything that anybody wants to add about it? Okay.
Not at this time.
Okay. So with that, what I've done is I've done a bench order that extends the deadline to July. It was July 13 was your request, correct?
Yes,
July
Your Honor.
13, 23 at 9 a.m. In addition, the guardian ad litem shall have an additional amount added of $750 to be split equally between the parties. Okay.
Okay.
All right. That takes care of that matter.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
A couple cases on, and I do see that we have one of our guardian ad litems, and that is, so I'm going to call that matter first. That is the Alton and Keefe matter 22-3-0049308. I have Ms. Call present with us, Ms. Keefe, and do I have Mr. Alton? Yes, I see.
Yeah, I'm here.
Very
I can
good.
barely hear you for some reason.
Okay, good idea to leave your screen. So it's okay to mute your video. Sometimes the video takes up a lot of the bandwidth of your connection. So if you want to leave the audio on and mute your video, sometimes that helps folks with their connection on their end. Okay, today was the day set aside. Mr. Alden, I'm just going to mute you just so we don't get any feedback. Today is the day set aside to have the final guardian ad litem review hearing. Looks like the judge ordered a couple additional things at one of the last hearings, and we're still waiting on those to be completed so that the guardian ad litem can complete her work. I did receive a request from the guardian ad litem to extend time for her final report. That seems reasonable to me. I'll turn to you first, Mr. Alton. Do you have any objection to the guardian ad litem's request to reset the date out that gave her additional time to complete her report?
No, I don't.
Okay, very good. And Ms. Keefe, how about you?
No, I don't.
Okay, very good. And Ms. Call, how far out are you asking for?
Good morning, Your Honor. I am requesting that we go to Thursday, August 3rd, in part because Ms. Keefe, we're waiting on a UA result, and then also Mr. Alton has gotten kiddo into counseling, and so I'd really love to see an assessment and some feedback from a mental health professional before I make recommendations in the report. So I'm hoping that offering a few more weeks, going out 3 weeks, may give us enough to achieve those.
And Mr. Alton, how many sessions has the child had with the counselor?
He's just been to one. Yesterday was his first one, and then he has another one on the 26th.
Okay, so with that information, I think what I'm going to do is actually push it out just a little bit further, give the child a chance to have maybe a few sessions on board, and also a chance for all the other reports to come back. I don't want the reports to come back on Wednesday and the guardian ad litem's reports due Thursday. And so my thought is I'm going to push this out to the end of the summer. And so does August 31st work for you, Ms. Call?
Yes, it does.
All right, very good. How about for you, Mr. Alton?
Yeah, that works.
All right, and you, Ms. Keefe?
Yep, that's fine.
Okay, very good. So we're going to have a review hearing on August 31st to make sure that the guardian ad litem report is in and everybody's had a chance to receive that on August 31st.
Okay.
Right. And then Ms. Call, I did receive your motion. You didn't sign it. And so any objection to me writing approved via Zoom?
No, that's just fine. Thank you, Your Honor. I apologize.
All right, very good.
There were several filings yesterday.
Very good. I understand. So with that, we'll set the matter over to the 31st. We'll see everyone back here at that date and time. Anything as far as further reports and things that you're doing for the guardian ad litem, just make sure that you're pushing to get those done so that they get to her so that she can finish and finalize her report.
Okay.
All right. Thanks very much, everyone. We'll see you.
That takes us to I have Garrett Alton and Ashley Keefe. This is 22-300-49308. I have the guardian ad litem, Ms. Cole. I have Mr. Alton, and I have Ms. Keefe. All right, great. I'm happy to have you all. Thank you to guardian ad litem. In this case, I do see that you got your report in yesterday, and the clerks were Johnny on the spot getting it filed for me, which I appreciate too.
I'm glad. I've tried to provide a bench order. I hope it reached you. I mean, a bench copy.
So perfect. It was able to make it to me. I've been able to take a look and review it. So at this point, here's where I am. It's my understanding that DNA testing has been done, and that at this point, it's not disputed between the two parties that Mr. Alton is the parent of the child for this action. Is that your understanding, Ms. Call?
Yes, that is my understanding. I've seen the test, and these
these two folks have gone in and out of co-parenting very well together, and at other times not as well. Landon acknowledges Mr. Alton as his father. Ms. Keefe acknowledges Mr. Alton as his father, as did Mr. Janke, Ms. Keefe's former husband. Looks like we may have lost Mr. Alton.
Okay. And all right. In just a moment. Okay. All right. And then Mr. Janke entered an order of relinquishment in 2019. All right. Was Mr. Janke ever on the birth certificate for the child?
Yeah, he was.
Okay.
I believe a new birth certificate has been established. Am I correct in that statement?
I don't think so.
I'm trying to fight with the health department and get on the birth certificate. I've talked to them a couple different times, and then they gave me some numbers to call. And so I am currently in the process of trying to figure that out.
Okay. And I ask because the case just has some odd procedural history. So when Mr. Janke was added to the child's birth certificate in 2017, is that right?
I think it was 2014 or 2013. Oh no, it was 2014. Somewhere in there.
And then this was filed. Okay, and then there's a petition to determine parentage that was filed in 2022.
The one that was filed in 2022 was, they ended up dismissing that eventually because Brock, myself, and Ashley were all on that case. And since Brock removed himself from the birth certificate and everything, then it kind of I had to change the case to just Ashley and I.
So you say that he removed himself from the birth certificate. Was there ever a birth certificate issued for the child that had no father, like an unlisted or unknown father?
When he was first born.
Okay. After Mr. Janke was added to the birth certificate, was he ever removed such that the birth certificate just now says no parent?
No, he was supposed to relinquish his rights to Garrett, and then Garrett was supposed to initially adopt him, is the way that they figured it out last time.
Okay. Just one moment. I'm looking at your old parentage file. Okay, so back in September of last year, the court signed a final order establishing Mr. Alton as a parent. And the only thing the court reserved was the parenting plan, saying that essentially that part had to be reserved, that the parenting plan and child support were reserved, but that otherwise the court granted the order. Okay. So that being the case, at this point, the court has made a year ago an adjudication that Mr. Alton is the child's parent. Sounds like there's some issues. And so I would invite you, sir, to maybe send those orders from September of last year to the Washington State Vital Statistics to see if that will solve the problem with the child being with both of the two of you listed on the birth certificate. But that does resolve sort of that question for me. So thank you for sort of granting me the time here to look through the additional file. Okay. All right. That being the case, so Ms. Call, I did receive your report. Thank you. It's extensive and very helpful because this case is complicated and has, again, some odd procedural history. And so is there anything you'd like me to add regarding, or anything you would like to add regarding the outcome for this young child?
Just that I know it's been a very contentious few months, and that Ms. Keefe has experienced a lot of heartache since June, since this temporary custody issue came up. And I appreciate the way that these two people have, while they still struggle to communicate in certain areas of this case, they both truly have Landon's best interest at heart and are both interested in having loving relationships with him. I think the conflict comes when it's the two of them trying to work out the details of that, how that relationship should operate. And so I think really by leaning into communication being restricted solely to drop offs and pickups, Landon's well-being, and having that happen within the app, as I wrote in the recommendations there, I think that's the healthiest way for Landon to be able to experience life with both of his parents and to hopefully find some peace and some security and consistency going forward. I think that right now, especially since Landon's starting to begin mental health and starting his 7th grade year of school, I think yesterday was his first day, I believe. Then hopefully this next school year, he can be in school every day as he's needed to be. He can be attending mental health sessions. He can see his doctor on a regular basis and hopefully come to a place of finding some consistency and peace with both of his parents.
Thank you. All right. So with that, sir, I'll turn the time to you first, and then ma'am, I'll turn the time to you next. So sir, since you're sort of the moving party in this action, what would you like me to know about establishing a parenting plan for your child?
Oh, I have my camera off. I have really bad service at work. I just wanted to let you know that real quick.
That's okay.
It dropped out once. Okay. So I just have a few concerns. When Ashley or Miss Keefe was granted visitation for the month of August, she did not follow the plans at all. The plans were for 3 days of visitation, and for 3 of the visitation, she had him for 3 nights and 4 days. And I kept telling her that it was just 3 days for visits. And then I even told her not the last visit.
Oh, looks like we lost him. I'm going to wait just a minute. So I know I still have you, ma'am, but it's important that you both hear each other. I'm going to give him a minute to reconnect.
I'm going to lock my dogs in the room over. Well, he's out.
I'm super sorry.
That's okay, sir.
I usually don't have this problem.
Go ahead.
And so, I showed up for the drop off, and Ashley never showed up, and so she said that she was getting ready to work. And Landon's attitude has not really been the same. He's been lying about stuff going on, and it just feels like, you know, she's trying to get
Sort of same thing. We're just going to give him a minute to reconnect.
Okay, I'm here.
That's
Your
okay.
Honor, I'm sorry to jump in.
That
I
was all
wonder if Mr. Alton might have more success on a phone call into Zoom. I wonder if
That's
that
true. So, Mr. Alton, you can call in as well, and use like a telephone, or a landline to call in if that's available to you. Is that something that you can do? All right, we're back. Looks like we have, you, sir, there via telephone. Thank you for, figuring that out. And then do we have Ms. Keefe?
Yes, sorry.
All right, very good. All right, so sir, I'll turn the time back to you. You had talked about how there was some misunderstandings or problems with the visits in August, and that's kind of where we left off, where you disconnected. So go ahead and start back up there.
Okay. And so Landon's kind of attitude has been changing. He was doing very, very good. And then phone calls were starting to get made to Heather, and accusations were being made to Heather about Landon being left home alone for 10 to 12 hours at a time with no food. And it's just, it's kind of just, it's a cycle. It's been a cycle. This is like the third or fourth time that this happens, and it's just continuing on. And Landon is being told things to get turned against me and not want to come to my house. And instead of getting support and, being mentally stable in life, and it's just very concerning to me still to this point. And that's all I have.
Okay. And so, ma'am, I'll turn the time to you. What would you like me to know?
Can we ask what lies are being told real fast? Can I ask questions to him?
No, this is not a trial. You may not do that. We're not
Well,
cross-examining anybody.
okay.
You can just tell me what you would like me to know.
Okay, Landon was supposed to have, I think, 2 or 3 different meetings with Heather, like phone calls, and he never got to do that. I didn't get to see him for 2 months, and he was still trying to make those calls to Heather. So I don't understand how that's my fault, by the way. Also, I've always been okay with him having contact with his dad. Garrett didn't reach out to me for a year to even try to set up any sort of visitation or anything, or even check on him. So I'm not really sure how I'm at fault for that either. I also have gone through my mental eval, and I've gotten registered with counseling, and I can see a psychologist if they choose that I should see one. I'm medicated for my anxiety and my depression. I also got the substance abuse assessment, and I also didn't have to have that, and I passed my UA and a hair follicle test. So I think all of these allegations are just kind of getting old, honestly. I'm completely fine, like, with whatever Landon wants to do. Like, I have no problem with Landon seeing Garrett or being with Garrett or anything. I have a problem with them talking horribly about me in front of him, and I'm sure that's probably why. I guess he got in trouble for seeing my mom because he has an app on his phone that tracks him. I would rather it go back to like what we had before, because he could hardly maintain those visits to start out with, like, because we did Thursday through Sunday, and then the next week we would do a Wednesday night, and then we split holidays so that he could go when, like, Garrett has 3 sisters, so he could go like for those days or those holidays, so they'd have the same holiday schedule and everything. I think that, like, probably a bad idea, but like if we tried it, it'd be okay. But he really wants to go to his friends are all there. His brother goes. He went before and he did really well there. I honestly don't think Garrett should have any sole decision making in any way. Like, I don't think he should be able to choose the school. Landon doesn't even want to go to a big school. That was the issue. With him going out of also, I didn't get done with the homeschooling because he got taken from me. So that doesn't really work out.
He was
I
on
think
summer
that's-
break.
Oh, hold on. No, one at a time. I'll call on you before you need to jump in. Ma'am, where do you live right now? What city?
I live in Castle Rock. But it's the dual school. I live in the house that I grew up in, and I grew up and graduated K through 12.
All right, are you currently living with your parents?
I'm living with my dad right now, but I'm looking for something in the school district.
Okay. And so you say you're living in Castle Rock, but are you living in the school district?
Yeah.
I was confused. Okay.
It's weird. The school district lines up weird.
Okay. But you anticipate, okay, and you anticipate moving and finding your own place.
Yeah, and even if I like lived in Kelso or something, I could still bring him to my dad's house. I've done that before too.
Are you currently employed?
Yeah, I'm a CNA for Americana.
Okay. How much do you make per hour?
Right now I'm making 21, but once my CNA license gets finished, which should be soon, I'll make almost 27.
And then, sir, what city do you reside in?
Longview.
And where are you employed?
For Adams Timber Service.
And are you hourly or salary there?
Hourly.
Okay, how much do you make? Do you know how much you make per month?
I think right around 6,000.
Okay. Okay. All right. All right. Before we move on, anything else you want to tell me, ma'am?
Honestly, I think we're better at communicating without the Wizard app, first off. Once we're like in like agreements with stuff and everything, we can usually talk our way out of stuff. And I think that like for like our changes and stuff, like I think Landon's old enough to have like probably a sit down with me, Landon, and Garrett can like figure our stuff out, like, and have him like be a part of like changes and stuff. Like the school district and stuff like that.
Okay.
Or sports,
and then
or anything.
Do you drive?
Me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I asked, some people don't. So that's why I asked.
Okay, I was like, yes.
And then what's your work schedule?
Right now it's 4 on and 2 off, and I work 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. I actually, when I got visitation back with Landon, I missed a couple days because he was freaking out when I was doing the 3 nights, because I would get him my 2 nights off, and then one of the nights I was working. And so I had to call in 2 weeks for that because he was having a meltdown about me leaving him. But now I can bring him to work with me, and he can sleep in one of the empty rooms if we have to do it that way.
Okay.
Your Honor.
Yes, ma'am. I'll turn to you.
Okay, yeah.
Go ahead. Ms. Call.
I'm sorry to interject. I just want to inform Ms. Keefe and Your Honor, district is its own district, and that district is different. Middle school is not in district. That's not accurate.
That was my understanding.
I graduated and I grew up in this house. The school bus goes by this house.
It's possible that the district lines have changed. I'm just looking at what's listed.
No, it's been like that.
I'm not trying to start a dispute.
Yeah. All right, that's fine.
Well, I'm just saying
that doesn't give me any heartburn with my decision, frankly.
Okay.
Hold on, I'm just making a note. All right, so sir, so I always give you an extra opportunity to speak, in that Ms. Keefe got to hear what you had to say before she spoke. And so now you've heard her speak. Yeah, so I'm going to give you an extra opportunity to speak, and then Ms. Call, I'll touch base with you before I make a decision as well. So sirs, after having heard Ms. Keefe speak, is there anything that you would like me to know, kind of specifically around what she spoke about?
Yeah, she's been talking about finding her own house, but Landon was informing me that she is currently looking for a house with her new boyfriend, Chucky, that I believe they've been recently started dating now, and maybe within the last month. And she's looking to move into a house with somebody that not really, I don't think Landon knows or anything. And for the school thing, he was enrolled in because his counselor is also his counselor at school is also his main counselor at Columbia Wellness. And so Landon and I talked, and it makes him much more comfortable having an adult that he can fall back to and have that security at the school with him. And his biggest thing is, I've been to parent teacher conferences, and everyone said he does great when he's at school. His biggest thing has been attendance issues. And I get up at 3:30 in the morning for work and get home at 6 o'clock at night or later. With him going to that, that would make it super stressful on myself and everybody around to try to run him 30 minutes back and forth. And, Ashley works nights, so she could easily take him to school after, or pick him up from school after she goes home and sleeps. That way I'm ensuring that he's making it to school every day, because the attendance issue just wasn't last year. I have a transcript when he attended that he had missed over a month of school there as well. So the thing has been in and year out. It's not just, starting recently. And, it's just, he has his counselor there. I talked to the principal. He was never bullied. He never approached an adult teacher, talking about the school being too big or not making friends or anything. I feel that he struggled to make friends and be social because he was just never there and could never build relationships with anybody while he was attending.
All right, thank you, sir. I appreciate that. And then Ms. Cole will give you the last word.
I feel like I've made the points I needed to make. The last thing I did want to address is concern around Ms. Keith having vehicle insurance. When I interviewed her, she did not have insurance for her vehicle. This is something I wish I had included in my recommendation. I want to make sure that she actually does, in fact, have a valid driver's license and has insurance before we know that she's transporting Landon long distances. That's my last sort of concern, is that she's insured and has a valid driver's license for him to be in a vehicle with her.
All right. Thank you both.
Thank
you all.
Do I get to go?
No, ma'am, you don't. So it's just sort of how the system's arranged. The moving party speaks. You get to hear them speak before you speak. So he didn't get to hear sort of what you had to say. Then that's why I give him a brief rebuttal at the end. And then I do like the bookend with the GALs, since they're sort of a neutral party to this. All right. Number one, to both of you, Landon is he 11 or 12 now? How old is he?
He's now 12.
Well,
I'm sorry, Ms. Call, go ahead.
He's 12. He's
12. Okay, that's what I had in my mind, was 11 or 12. All right. Folks, 12-year-olds are not adults. They're not. And especially, we have a young man who's been pulled around and had kind of some rough things happen to him as a young person. To be told, this is your parent. No, it's not your parent. Now that person who's been dismissed from your life for several years is your parent. To have frankly, people who absolutely were this child's parent in his eyes, drop out of his life completely, that's very, very hard for a young person. Frankly, I can't imagine doing that, even if that child was not biologically your child, to just say, done with you. So this young man suffered a lot of hurt these last couple of years, and suffered quite a bit. We've had a lot of upheaval in his household. Ms. Keefe, you don't really deny, and I don't think you could, sort of, there's been a lot of changes in your life too, that your life has been pretty difficult. Kids suffer because they come along. And as much as we try to shield them and shelter them from some of those hard things, there's some practical realities that kids are aware of. But I invite you both to recognize he is a child. Number one, do not ask him to make decisions. Do not involve him in adult conversations. And what I mean by that is, Ms. Keefe, you're like, well, we can just sit down and have a conversation. No, he's 12. He doesn't make those decisions. It's not fair to him to make those decisions. You are the adults. You are the ones who need to make the decision. And then you tell him the decision that was made. You can talk to him about his input, but he doesn't make those decisions. The two of you need to make them and not put him in the middle. Number two, both of you need to leave him out of litigation or court stuff. Don't talk to him about court cases. It's fine for you to explain the schedule to him, like, hey, here's the schedule, but I invite you both to make it positive, that this is the schedule, this is going to be great, regardless of how you feel about it. And that's to both of you. But leave him completely out of the court process. Don't encourage, at this point, the guardian ad litem has completed her report. Her responsibility to both of you is concluded. So sort of, I think people tend to kind of amp up, and increase their rhetoric as cases go forward. That's kind of over now, because the guardian ad litem's done and the report is in, and I'm going to issue a temporary order today. So this idea that you're going to try to get the kid to say this or get the kid to say that, don't. A, that ship has sailed, and B, when you do that, it alienates the child from you. Ultimately, you are asking that child to lie if the things are not true, and ultimately that will backfire on you because you have a young man that is very shortly going to be a teenager, and when you teach a child to lie to someone else, you're teaching them to lie to you, and that is the hard, cold reality. You want your child to be honest with you, to know that you are a safe place to both of you, a safe place that he can come and tell you what's going on. I will note, and I do find that this young man suffered educational neglect. Withdrawing him from classes with no executable plan is unacceptable. You can't say, well, we planned to homeschool, but then you didn't. Before you ever took him from classes, if you were going to homeschool, that should have been ready the very next day. We'll get to it when we get to it. Because now he's suffered losses educationally. He's going to have to work real hard these next couple of years to get back. And especially in light of young people having gone through COVID this last couple of years, educationally, kids are already stressed. So to put extra stress on that young person is unfair to him. So I do find that. So couple things for both of you. Number one, the guardian ad litem has asked for some assessments. I'm going to leave those out of my order for now on a temporary basis. Both of you are encouraged to complete them. I'm not ordering them at this time. What I am ordering is that both of you complete a parenting class called Love and Logic. This is not a you're a bad parent class. This is a class where both of you can attend, and then you both have a base idea of a certain parenting style, so that ideally when the child's in both of your homes, you have similar tactics on how you manage him. It's a class that was originally developed for teachers, and was so effective they developed a sort of subset of it for parents. And I like to order it because I think it gives you both some base understandings on how to be the best parents you can be. And I think this kid deserves that. Number 2, you're both going to complete a parenting class called Children in Between. It's only about 4 hours. It's how to be good co-parents. It's specific training on how to be a co-parent, frankly, and how to not put your child in the middle. So I'm ordering both of you to do that. I am going to order that you continue to use Our Family Wizard. I think that's reasonable, at least at this time. This is a temporary order. It's not a final order, but sounds like you're already using it. I want that to continue. Child needs to continue with his mental health counseling. That's appropriate. Sounds like that's getting on board or has gotten on board. That needs to continue. I am ordering what I'll call loser pays drug testing for you both. You both have some substance abuse history and I'll call it question marks. And so what I'm ordering is that either of you can ask through Our Family Wizard that the other parent be drug tested. Or that's generally going to be through a hair follicle or a UA. If you're asking for the drug testing, you have to pay for it up front. If it's negative, then or not in violation of this court order, then sort of you just eat that cost. If it is in violation of the court order, then the other person has to reimburse you. So you have to pay up front, sort of kind of put your money where your mouth is. But if the other person's dirty or in violation of the order, then there's an obligation to pay you back. Neither of you are to drink alcohol or use marijuana during your parenting time. Means that if the child's with the other parent and you want to go out with some friends and have a good time, go for it. If the child's with you, that is not an option for you. Period. End of story. Don't cheat. Don't do something in between. For now, this is the order. Both of you are sort of on notice as to that fact. If you use marijuana for many of its purposes, figure out something else, at least during your parenting time. All right. So getting into the child's actual schedule. Hold on, let me make sure I do appreciate the graded item gave me a lot of information. All right. All right, so as to child, child's going to reside primarily with the father. I think the father is more stable, and this child needs and deserves some stability. Mother is going to have a visitation with the child on every 2nd and 4th weekend of the month, and the way you determine the weekend is going to be determined by Fridays. Mother's weekends with the child are going to be, so I struggle with this. I'm going to make them a long weekend, and it's going to be Thursday to Monday morning drop off. So her obligation is to pick the child up from school on Thursdays. You will drop him off back to school on Monday. If it's a 3-day weekend, you drop off back to school on Tuesday morning. The idea is this keeps the two of you separate, so you don't interact at 99.9% of the exchanges. It also connects Mrs. to school and make sure that she's picking up those times where teachers will just snag you and say, hey, this is going on. That way mom has some buy-in for that too, and some responsibility. I am adopting, though, the guardian ad litem's recommendation that, ma'am, if you don't get him to school, so you're going to have to get him to school on time without misses on Fridays and on Mondays or Tuesdays if it's a holiday. If you miss more than, I'm adopting the guardian ad litem's recommendation. Maybe it's on the next page. More than 2 unexcused absences from school in a semester, then the father can come back to reduce your time. So essentially, you get 2 misses every half year. So basically every 6 months. And the easiest way to break it down is, September to December, you have 2 misses where he could be late or have an absence. If he's sick, you better take him to the doctor and get a note. But kid has to be to school. He's got to be on time. That has to be a priority for this young man. He's got to get back on track. Education.
We know that Garrett also was involved in his
Hold on,
latenesses.
no, I'm ruling.
Okay.
So that's when you're not talking. I'll give an opportunity to everybody to ask questions, but this time, at this point, you can ask questions when I'm done, but I'm done taking information. And again, this is a temporary order. It is not a final order. I am going to do standard holidays. That means I'm going to get an equal sharing of holidays to both of you. And that'll be, and I'm going to write up a parenting plan for you just so that you have it and it's done. That'll be entered by the end of the day, and you'll both be able to get a copy from the clerk's office tomorrow. And I invite you to come do that so that you can both have a copy of it. So standard holidays, visits. If either of you lose your housing, you need to notify the other parent. I'm not going to make an order on what happens, but if either of you lose your housing, you need to notify the other parent within 24 hours. It's not reasonable that the child be in that situation. Over the summer, you're each to have the regular parenting schedule will continue through the summer, but in addition, you can both have an additional 1 week. You can tack that 1 week to your regular time. So that means, ma'am, for you, you can take your regular weekend, long weekend, and then tack an additional 7 days. So your weekend ends normally on a Monday at 9. If you wanted to then tack your vacation would go to the following Monday at 9 a.m. So that's what tacking means, is you can sort of butt them up next to each other time-wise. Ma'am, you're to continue in your counseling and to continue with all medications that are prescribed to you. That's appropriate. I'll give you each half of spring break because I think that's reasonable for you both. And then ma'am, because you have an unusual work schedule, it's not reasonable to take your child to work with you. That is not a reasonable thing for a 12-year-old to do. And so especially given the work that you do. So if you are working during your parenting time, and it sounds like you're generally working the night shift or the overnight hours, then you have to let my client know. And he has the first option to care for the child, and that will be from 8 p.m. to 9 a.m. So essentially, while you're working, kid goes to dad to sleep, have dinner, go to sleep, wake up, but then you can have him back. So essentially,
I'm asleep before 9. I get off at 6 a.m.
Then I understand that. I'm not waking a child up at 6 a.m. to transfer him back to you. That's not fair to him. So that's something you're going to have to figure out.
He gets up at 6 a.m. with Garrett every day.
Nope.
Okay.
You can use a transportation designee if you would like. You can do that. But again,
can he stay with my dad, who I live with?
If your dad is a safe and reasonable person, then he can pick up the child. That's fine by me.
No, I mean, can he stay here at our house and stay with my dad, so I don't have to meet Garrett every time I work?
No, the father has the first right of refusal. So that means that parents have priority first. Because again, I want parents to have priority over all other people. All right. And so child's going to attend school in the father's school district. That's reasonable for this young man. At this point, I don't believe there's a current. I'm not making any orders as far as child support. I don't have sufficient information to feel confident about that. Either of you can raise that issue at a later time. I believe that resolves all of the parenting plan at this time. So with that, Ms. Call, any questions?
No, Your Honor, I appreciate what you've created there.
All right, sir, any questions that you have about the order that I've made?
Yeah, I was just confused on the drop off and pickup. So on the weekends that she's gonna, so do I take Landon to school on Thursday?
So
I was kind of confused on that.
that's a great question. Thank you for clarifying. So what you're going to do is you're going to drop off to school on Thursday mornings. So child would have slept at your home Wednesday night to Thursday morning. You drop off to school on Thursday. Mom's going to pick up from school at the end of the school day.
Okay, and then she'll drop him off on Monday, and I will pick him up on Monday.
That's correct.
Correct.
She'll have to
Okay.
be responsible to drop him off and pick him up on Friday as well.
Okay,
Good. Other questions, sir?
that's it. Sorry.
Ms. Keith, any questions you have about the court's order?
I was supposed to get him today, so do I not get him today?
Let's see, today is Thursday. Let me look at a calendar real fast. Okay, so I'm gonna have him stay with dad because I'm awarding you the second and fourth weekends, and this upcoming weekend, September 1, is the first weekend. So you would have next weekend would be your time would start next Thursday. September 7th would be your weekend. Okay, other questions?
Nope, that's it.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to draft a parenting plan and enter that order for both of you. Again, you'll have to come to the courthouse to get a copy of it. Bring some cash because they do charge for copies, but you will both want to have a copy of the plan in black and white so you both know your responsibilities. And then that way everybody knows for sure sort of what's what as far as the court order goes. And then everyone needs to follow that court order. One last thing, folks, this is a temporary order. It is not a final order. Because it is not a final order, your case is not done. You still need to either A, reach an agreement on your case, or B, take your case to trial if the two of you can't agree and resolve it at trial. So those are sort of the two ways off this freeway that is your case. So please be aware of that. If you don't complete your case, at some point the clerk will just dismiss it. So it behooves you both to move it forward and get it completed. And then Ms. Call,
Okay.
anything further?
I'm just curious about my motion for discharge, if that was going to go through today.
It is. Thank you for raising that. Yes. So just so both of you folks know, Ms. Cole is requested to be discharged. That just means that the court asked her to do an investigation and write a report, and she has done that. And so there isn't anything further for her to do because she's completed everything the court asked for. So with that, I am going to sign that order.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. All right. And so again, I appreciate you, Ms. Cole. I appreciate both mom and dad. I know you both love this young man very, very much. You want the best for him. Go from this hearing. Neither of you got everything you wanted. You both now have some things you've got to go do. Go from this hearing with sort of your eyes on the prize. And that is eyes on your son to have the best life he can have, the most productive life he can have, be supportive of each other as parents, because again, he's 12, he's going to be 13 in a hot minute. And it'll take both of you to bring him all the way through graduation day. So both stay involved, both continue to do all the right things and ensure he has the best outcome because he's the priority. Although both of you are important, he's the priority. And I think you both understand that. So I appreciate both of you, both of all of your efforts so far. Just continue with that that thought process. All right. Thank you both. Again, you can get a copy of that order tomorrow. All right. Thank you. And with that, that ends today's.
Garrett Alton and Ashley Keefe.
I'm here.
I'm here also.
my daughter's divorce and parenting plan hearing. See how it goes.
Why the candy get moved down?
Huh?
Why the candy get moved down?
All right, Mr. Alton, anything you wish to say in addition to what's in your paperwork?
No, I just, I'm hoping we can figure something out because this continues on. It's happened again this last weekend. I'm sorry, I'm really sick right now. It's happened the last weekend. It's happened 3 weekends in a row now where she's overtaking her time from me. So that's, I don't have much.
Ms. Keefe, anything you want to say?
Last weekend I told him that we were gonna go to the hospital because Landon was coughing and puking up blood. And so we went to the emergency room and Garrett decided to meet me afterwards. Also the time before that, he agreed to meet me at 5. And then the first time I completely read the parenting plan wrong. And I thought that if Landon wasn't at school, it was drop off at 6, not 9. So I did mess that one up. But I mean, I was taking him to the emergency room for puking up blood. He's been having an ongoing stomach issue that Garrett's neglecting.
Mr. Alton, anything you want to say?
Yeah, he had a bloody nose is why he coughed up blood. We went to the doctors and had a doctor appointment. He's also went to a specialist and had ultrasounds and lab works and blood tests done, and everything's 100% normal.
It wasn't a specialist, it was an ultrasound technician. And he didn't have a bloody nose at my house when he was coughing up blood.
Yeah. I just said this in the last case too. The short and simple answer is you folks have a parenting plan. It specifies what you are to do and what time you're to do it. You've got to follow. End of story. I am going to make a finding of contempt against Ms. Keefe. I'm not going to order any fees at this point in time. Mr. Alton, you need to prepare that order. We'll put this on for November 30th for presentation. And Ms. Keefe, look at the parenting plan carefully. Do what it says.
Okay.
That will be all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Over to the 30th. Heidi L. All right. Alton and Keefe.
I'm here.
All right. And Ms. Keefe.
I'm here.
Okay. Ms. Keefe, I've got a proposed contempt order. Do you have any objection to that, the language in that order?
I just feel like we were both confused on it and I've been following it since then.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and sign that order. I just want to emphasize the rules that are set up in the parenting plan and all that. Those are not suggestions. Those are the rules. The first contempt is kind of a freebie. From here on out, they will certainly end up costing money. Understand that?
Understood.
Okay. I'll sign that order and hopefully everything goes fine.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Next matter I have noted is Garrett Alton and Ashley Keefe, cause number 223-493-08. There, it looks like Ms. Keefe is present. Ms. Keefe, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. And then I see Garrett Alton is present. Can you hear me, sir?
Yep.
Wonderful. And Ms. Kell, I can see you. Can you hear me okay?
I can. And just to be clear, Your Honor, I'm no longer technically on this case, but I'm here to, give input if Your Honor is interested or if that's appropriate in any way.
Okay, great. Thank you. I appreciate that extra effort being here today. All right. So what I see is that this is motions brought by Ms. Keefe. There's 2 allegations of contempt related to paragraph 14K1 of the parenting plan and 14H3 of the parenting plan. Specifically, the first one is cooperating with the exchange of information. And the second is an allegation related to derogatory comments. So that's one aspect of today's hearing, is the motion for contempt on those two prongs, if you will. And then I noted also is that there is a restraining order, a temporary restraining order that was issued and that was served upon Mr. Alton. And I'm just going to look at one item just to confirm that this is the appropriate docket to hear that matter. So I'm looking at the temporary restraining order and it's set it to today's date. Okay. All right. All right. So that's kind of where we're at. So what I've read is a motion for the restraining order and motions for order to show cause related to the contempts. Ms. Keefe, is there any other matters that you feel were going to be addressed today, but I have not mentioned?
So Garrett got served on the 10th. So the Wednesday before I was supposed to get him on Thursday, the clerk's office told me that I was going to have to serve him. And he found out, he kept Landon that night, regardless of the restraining order. And he went home and he screamed at him, telling him that he was going to send him to jail, all of this stuff. So his abuse just keeps going no matter what is going on.
All right. So you indicated that the service of the, it looks like I'm showing that there's the service of the immediate restraining order occurred on January 10th.
Yeah.
And then as far as the contempts, did you serve copies of your motion for the order to show cause?
I did yesterday. With the snow and everything, we couldn't really get off my hill because I live in Tootle, Castle Rock. And then my dad had to work overtime. He was on a shutdown. He works at the mill. So he was the one that was gonna serve him. My mom got diagnosed with kidney cancer and she had to have her kidney removed. So she's been dealing with that. So I just didn't really have anybody to serve him until yesterday. But could I start mailing him so that I could serve him faster, or?
That's one option that you have. There's personal service can be effectuated. So personal service can be effectuated through a variety of means. So yes, so that's so with if he was served yesterday, then I know what Ms. Keefe's position is related to the contempts. I don't know Mr. Alton's position related to the contempts, since you didn't have really an opportunity to respond to them. So Mr. Alton, do you want to just share your viewpoint as far as as far as the motions for contempt? I don't think we're in a position to hear them today because you were served late and you didn't have opportunity to respond to them. Do you have any questions or comments related to the contempts as far as moving forward today? Because I'm planning on not moving forward on the contempts today.
I got served the hearing notice on the 10th from the sheriff's department. They had went out to my grandparents' address, which is where all the paperwork goes. And my grandma called me and said a sheriff was out there with some papers. So I ended up getting a hold of the sheriff's office. And then I met the sheriff down in Kelso at McDonald's. My question is everything was filed at the same time. It was she had all the paperwork at the same time. There's false accusations. This whole thing is absolutely absurd. Landon has been extremely healthy in my care. He's been going to school. He has not attended any school since he's been with Ashley. I think he's went to one day of school. And the other day that he attended was the day that I dropped him off. So after I got served from the sheriff's department, nobody showed up to get Landon, or she didn't contact me. I had no other paperwork. All I had was a restraining order and a hearing notice. So I'm not going to throw my son out on the street. So I kept him overnight and took him to school the next day and dropped him off. I never screamed at him. I talked to him and asked him, because I was trying to figure out at the same time what was going on, because I had no idea, because I had no paperwork. And so I actually went through his phone and found the text messages of him saying that he was scared at my house And apparently I had pushed Colton over a bed frame, but we are in the mid process of moving. My bed frame was completely torn apart. Colton and McKinley's beds weren't even at the house, and Landon's beds it was in his room put together. This,
Do you mind if I just interrupt just for a moment?
yeah.
So you're in, it sounds like you're in process of responding to the allegations that Ms. Keefe raised in her motion for contempt. Generally, what I do is I make sure that everybody has got a copy of the motion, and I make sure that if you want to respond in writing, that you be given an opportunity to respond in writing, and then we'd come back after a period of time, and then everybody is able to argue their point of view based on the information that the parties have filed. So I'm inclined to not hold a hearing on the contempt motions today, rather give you opportunity to file a response to the court and then file or give a copy to Ms. Keefe so she's aware of what your position is and would come back in 2 or 3 weeks and address the issue. Are you comfortable with that?
Yes.
Okay, let's do that. So Ms. Kell, let me just hear from you if you have any input you think would be of benefit to share.
I have a couple of thoughts. I also want to be clear that I have not investigated the details of this current situation. I was alerted yesterday that this was all happening, and so I did want to attend. I know that Ms. Keefe has been very concerned since custody transferred to Mr. Alton. My previous guardian ad litem report recommended that Mr. Alton be given custody, which he was. When Landon is in the care of Ms. Keefe, we notice some pretty traditional patterns of behavior, which is we have issues with Landon attending school. His education drops off the meter pretty quickly. He also tends to, when he's in the care of Ms. Keefe, report a lot of stomach problems and health issues. Landon has been seen by a doctor for those health issues, and the doctor stated that his concern was stress for Landon. As I mentioned, I can't speak to these allegations because I haven't been able to investigate them yet, but my experience of this case is that there is a tendency to exaggerate concerns when they come up in a way to make things look bigger than they are on occasion. And so just to speak to, I am concerned for Landon's education. When he's in the care of Ms. Keefe, he tends to not go to school, and we get large numbers of unexcused absences and problems like that. But those are the things I have at this point. Just a history of understanding. My understanding and perception is that when Landon is with Mr. Alton, a lot of things seem to be much more steady, much more consistent, and Landon seems to thrive educationally while he's in his father's care.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Could I say something?
You can. We're not going to really make any decisions today, so it may be more of a what I call a feel-good statement. In other words, you know, something is brought up that maybe we disagree with or doesn't sit with us well. There's a human need to respond.
Yeah.
Really, I'm not making any decisions related to the contempts and the like. So we have a temporary restraining order that's in place that was signed off on, looks like on January 8th and filed on January 9th, and it was served upon Mr. Alton on, I think, on the 10th of January. That order gives temporary custody of Landon to mom. And so let me ask the parties, Mr. Alton, we talked about your response to the contempt motions. I don't want to set this out very far, so I'm thinking about setting it over just a single week to allow you to file a response. Does that give you enough time?
For the contempts or the restraining order?
For the contempts and for the restraining order, we could hear that today and address that today over Zoom.
Okay, that's fine.
Ms. Keefe, would that work out okay for you?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so let's do this. So the motions for contempt, the next 2 weeks are fairly full, so I'm looking at setting the matter to the 21st of February to hear the contempts, February 21st at 9 a.m. Wednesday. And I just check with the parties to see what your schedules look like. Ms. Keefe, your schedule on the 21st of February?
Yeah, that'll be fine.
Okay, Mr. Alton?
Yeah, that works for me.
Okay. All right, so Mr. Alton, if you plan to file a response to the motions for contempt, please make sure you get those filed with the court, and then make sure a copy is provided to Ms. Keefe.
Okay.
All right. So here there is the temporary restraining order until a full motion can be heard. And I'll double check with Madam Clerk, any issues if we were to go forward as far as your responsibilities and note taking and the like, if we were to move forward with the temporary order. Okay. Pardon me, with the temporary restraining order. All right. And Ms. Kell, if I'm not sure if what your timeframes are, certainly you're welcome to, it's open court, so you're welcome to attend and listen. But if you need to go, obviously that's in your purview and your discretion.
Thank you, Your Honor.
So here there was the motion for immediate restraining order that was filed by Ms. Keefe. And so we're going to have a hearing on those concerns that she's raised. So generally in a protection order hearing or restraining order hearing, I would hear from both parties. I'd put you under oath. Both of you would share your information. I generally don't allow people to ask each other questions. Generally, the person who's asking for the restraining order goes first. They share their information, which is Ms. Keefe. Mr. Alton, you'd be able to hear everything. Sure. The clerk just asked me to pause for a second. We have an issue with the recording system, so bear with me one moment, please. Testing 1, 2, 3. Okay, great. Thank you for your patience. All right, so Ms. Keefe would go first. She would share her information about what her concerns are. Then Mr. Alton, you would be able to hear her concerns, respond to her concerns, and then share any new information that you think is relevant. And then it'd be back to Ms. Keefe to share information about any new information that Mr. Alton shares during his time. And so generally that's the process that we go through. I may interrupt the parties with questions, and if I do, please don't take offense. I'm just trying to get the information that I need. And then once we've heard from both parties, then I would make a decision on whether the temporary order becomes a more permanent or a longer lasting order. So that's the general procedure. Ms. Keefe, do you have any questions about that, the general arrangement of how we're going to proceed?
No. Sorry. No, I don't.
Okay. Mr. Alden, any questions on your end as of how we will proceed today?
No.
Okay. All right. So what I'd like before we do that, I just want to double check with other parties that are on the line today, if they're anticipating their case to be called, because this is going to be the last matter for the morning. If there's any other cases that you're anticipating that would be called this morning, I'd be happy to hear from you. Okay, I'm not hearing any response, so then we'll move forward. All right, so I'll ask both Ms. Keefe and Mr. Alton to please raise your right hand and I'll administer the oath. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Yes.
Great, thank you. Okay, Ms. Keefe, if you'll please state your full name and spell your last name.
Ashley Dawn Keefe, Keef as in Frank E.
Thank you. All right, if you'd just like to lay out what your concerns are and why you're asking for the restraining order.
There's been a bunch of abuse going on in Garrett's home that Landon's informed me about. Jessica is smacking her children, screaming in her children's face. They're pushing them around. Now Garrett's pushing Colton, who's 7, on the ground. Her kids are completely out of control. They're biting Landon. They're hitting Landon. Their house it's just completely out of control. Garrett is verbally and mentally abusing Landon. He is talking poorly about me any chance he can get. He calls me an alcoholic. He tells me I'm a bad mother, or tells him I'm a bad mother. It's just a constant bad mouthing me. Landon's brother got taken away for situations, and Landon has like PTSD from that. And so going to a stranger's house and then him treating him like that and saying, like, when he got served, Garrett told him to have fun on his vacation and he'll see him on the 31st. Like, he's just mentally abusing him any chance he can get. I made an appointment as soon as I could with his primary care doctor, and we discussed the stress, which just got diagnosed. So I'm not sure how they're already knowing, but we talked about the stress. He apologized for his dad's behavior because he freaked out yelling in the office, the doctor's office. He was screaming at the receptionist, trying to get me out because I wanted to see what was going on with Landon. He was threatening to call the cops on me. He was verbally abusing me, and all in front of Landon and other people. We had to have the manager of the doctor's office come out and calm him down before we could even go into a room, like with the doctor and Landon. He refused to let Landon see his primary care doctor that he's been seeing since he was like 3. He refused to let him see him by himself. He asked Landon if he was scared, and he said yes. He repetitively tells me he's scared. He texted me.
Keith, do you mind if I interrupt? It looks like Mr. Alton popped off the screen and looks like he's back on. Mr. Alton, are you there?
Yeah, I don't know what happened there. But can I stop my video and see if that'll help?
Yeah, sometimes that helps. So the audio flows, and there's less demand on the bandwidth. So if you want to turn your camera off, that's fine. I'll ask that when you get to your turn to testify, if you can, we'll have you turn it on, but you can turn off the camera now.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I apologize, Ms. Keefe.
That's okay.
Go ahead.
So we went in. He tried to have me escorted. They wouldn't let him because I do have rights to be there. So he finally dropped that. I got Landon an appointment last week. They've actually put him on anxiety medication that he took like when he had a panic attack. I've been in contact with CPS from when Garrett called it on me the last time. So I've had her number and I've contacted her through all my decisions and everything. I called her because I would get to the school and Landon would just have a complete meltdown. I did keep him home 2 days because of the medication. Because I didn't know how it was going to be, because sometimes it can make you fall asleep or make you weird feeling. I didn't want him to be there and scared more because it was giving him a little bit of anxiety to take something new. So I kept him home for those 2 reasons. And CPS also told me, like, if he's having complete panic attacks, then to keep him for longer. He was having nightmares. He's been waking up several times a night. He's having nightmares Garrett's coming and taking him from school. He's having nightmares that Garrett's just keeping him. He's scared to be there. Like, I don't know what else to do. I just lost my train of thought. Garrett also is supposed to not be smoking marijuana or anything else in the care of Landon. Landon's caught him smoking. Garrett went through his phone because he sent me a picture of something and he's like, my dad's smoking this, and he got in trouble for that, and it was marijuana. His levels are extremely high. I used it when I was in my other case, and I haven't smoked for like almost 2 years, and his levels are like almost 1.5 over what my levels were. And I used them for anxiety throughout the day and for sleeping, and he's only told us that he uses it for sleeping. He's completely abusing it. And with his heroin abuse, when he did heroin when we were together, if he would come down from a high whatsoever, he would completely get aggressive. He'd be rude. He'd push me around. He'd yell at me. He's doing the same thing to our son. And they don't have a relationship at all. Garrett's not been around. He was gone for a year before he started this with no contact whatsoever. He never reached out to him. And now he's just trying to come in and completely disrupt Landon's life, and it's throwing him overboard. He sent me a TikTok a couple weeks ago that was about this kid that got bullied at school and bullied at home, and he ended up killing himself. And so I called him. I'm like, hey, like, that, what'd you send me that for? And he's like, oh, it was just sad. And so we kind of brushed it off. I was like, well, like, not to feel that way. Like, can you talk if you feel that way? And he's like, yeah, I know. And so then a couple weeks later, he sent me a message, and he's like, you promised. I added that message in the papers. But he was like, "Do you promise not to be mad at me?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm not going to be mad at you. What's going on?" And he said that he was thinking about hurting himself. And so Garrett has me blocked to where even on the app, you can now do phone calls, but he's blocked my number, my cell phone number. So I can't call him. I tried to call him on the app. It wouldn't let me. And then, so I called the cops because I didn't know what else to do. It was almost 9:30 and his phone shuts off. And so the cops called him. And I couldn't talk to Landon for the rest of the night, and I was worried. And then he told me the next day that Garrett screamed at him and yelled at him and told him to stop lying, that he doesn't feel that way. He's not taking his mental health seriously. And Garrett has mental health issues. I've been with him. I've known him since we were 15. I know him. He has it too. And I also have mental health issues. He's not taking it seriously. He's going about it all in the wrong way. Landon's a soft person. You can't just scream at him or yell at him. You have to talk to him. Also with the schooling and everything, I took him out to homeschool him and they didn't give me the chance to homeschool him. Garrett has not been around. He doesn't know how I parent. Heather only saw Landon before he got taken, and the day he got taken, she never checked in on him to make sure he was okay. She never talked to him again until she never talked to him again. So she didn't even know how he was. Nobody knew how he was. And he was stuck there. He couldn't even talk to his mom. He's got PTSD going on. I set him up with I talked to CPS and I also talked to his primary care doctor, and I got him enrolled in Core Health Youth, also on top of his original counselor that he goes to. And we're gonna start that on the 13th, was the soonest we could get in. But Garrett also moved out of the school district, again, without notifying me. And so now he's gonna have to start a new school because he's not in the school district anymore. His brother goes to friends. He has a great support system there. His best friend's mother works there. So he has someone to go to at all times. He knows the teachers. I know the teachers because I went K through 12 there. And if he needs to switch schools, I believe that his best interest in at all. I've been trying to get back to since we left. And I just think that Landon's mental health is very, very scary right now. CPS has also been notified about not only Landon, but also the other children in Garrett's home. And I think that I have it all for now. Sorry.
Okay. You mentioned at the outset some concerns related to treatment of Landon at the home of the father. How do you know that information?
Landon.
How old's Landon?
Almost 13.
Okay. And did you see, you said that did you see any physical marks on his body?
He hasn't physically touched Landon, but he's threatened to hurt him so bad that he can't walk. He's threatened to beat him. He threatens him with violence. He did the same thing with me.
Okay. All right, thank you. The episode at the doctor's office, when did that occur?
That happened, I think, on Halloween. I'm pretty sure it was on Halloween. Yeah, it was on Halloween. I brought him his costume.
So was that addressed in any type of motion?
I believe I put it into the contempt stuff from him trying to push me out.
In the most recent contempt or prior contempts?
The most recent contempt.
So I'm just going to take a look at your motion. When you indicated that you weren't able to call through the app, but you had instead called 911, what was the result of the 911 call?
I asked her to go out and talk to him because they're supposed to have like a crisis line type thing, was what I was told by dispatcher. The officer called me back and she said that she would try to go out there. She actually just called Garrett, and I asked her to just go down there and like communicate to make sure Lana was okay, and she refused. She said that she thought that it'd be more scary to talk to somebody in a uniform than to talk to his dad, and I told her that he'd be more comfortable. Garrett also, when he served me with this contempt or with this whole order that we're in, when he couldn't find me at my residence, Landon had him escorted off of our property by a police officer, and he got in the police officer's face. Landon has a lot of reason to be afraid of Garrett.
All right, thank you. Okay, thank you. All right, Mr. Alton, I'll turn the time to you.
Okay. So we're talking about the doctor's office and stuff, but that's supposed to be talked about in a few weeks. So I thought we were talking about the stuff for the restraining order today.
That's what we're talking about, is the motion for the restraining order.
Right. Okay. So do you want me to answer anything about the doctor's office, or?
You can if you'd like. I mean, Ms. Keefe.
I can kind of explain. Okay. So what happened at the doctor's office was Landon was having stomach issues. And every time he would go to Ashley's house for visitation is when he would have the stomach issues, and he wouldn't go to school. They would go to the emergency department on like a Friday, and then they would go back sometimes on a Monday, but never throughout the weekend. So I made appointments with Dr. Lee, which is his primary care physician, and we had an appointment with Dr. Lee up in Castle Rock. So Landon and I showed up at his doctor's appointment, and Ashley showed up. So Landon has a tendency to lie when his mom puts things in his head. And so I thought it was better that Landon talked to his doctor without Ashley or me there. There was never a big scene there. It was more me.
Mr. Alton, it looks like you cut off your audio. You said it wasn't.
I'm not sure why it's cutting out when I was going to stop my video again. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that was the first time you cut out. So just keep the video off and continue.
So there was never any screaming. There was never anything about, there was more talk about me not wanting Ashley there because Landon would continue to lie about what was going on. I never threatened to call the police. I called the Castle Rock Police Department to see if there was anything that they could do to help me out. I went outside and I made the phone call, and they said that there was nothing I could do. So I checked the parenting plan, and there was nothing in the parenting plan that said that she couldn't be there. So then I went back inside and talked to the nurse or the receptionist that was there and said, let's just go ahead and do this, and we'll figure it, we'll get it all taken care of. We went in the room, we talked to Dr. Lee, and he said that him missing days of school was absolutely unnecessary. His stomach issues were most likely from anxiety or stress. And he recommended that we have a second or go to a specialist ultrasounds. So we made the appointment, went to the specialist for ultrasounds, and they did an ultrasound on every organ in Landon's body, and nothing was wrong. They said that it's most likely from stress or anxiety. So that was the doctor incident. I have never screamed at Landon. The reason that the dispatch did not send an officer up was because when I was talking to her on the phone, they said that Ashley sounded irrational, and they see no reason to send an officer up to my house. I went in Landon's room, and we had probably an hour and a half long discussion about what suicide was and what it is, because I have had a family member just a couple years ago that committed suicide, and I never once badmouthed Ashley. I've always told Landon from day one, I want what's best for you. I want what's best for your mom. And I want nothing more than for you to go to your mom's more and spend more time with your mom. But when the manipulation and everything is continuing to go on, and he's not going to school. He hasn't attended school hardly at all when he's in Ashley's care. There's there's just no reason for him to go there extra time when he can't make it to school. I went to his parent teacher conferences a little over a month ago, and they said he's a great student. He's absolutely amazing. The only problem that they had was when he started missing school. And those were on the days that Ashley was keeping him from school and saying that he was sick and would not go and pick up any of his homework to get done, make up any of his work. So he started falling further and further behind. Landon has a counselor at his school that he sees every Thursday. He has not seen his counselor in a couple of weeks now because he hasn't went to school. I've done absolutely everything I can to help Landon mentally. I know how I don't scream and I don't yell at Landon. I talk to Landon like he's a person. I have a video on my phone.
All right, looks like Mr. Alton inadvertently signed off. We'll just wait till he comes back on. Mr. Alton, are you there?
Yes.
Okay, you were mentioning a video.
Try to find. Yes, I have a video on my phone from when I took him to school that morning, and I had a conversation with Landon about what was going on and why he was saying that, Jessica and I were hitting the kids, because Jessica and I have never hit our kids. When they're at their extreme worst, they get a swat on the butt and might get sent to the corner. 95% of the time they get sent to the corner for 3-5 minutes to think about what's going on, and that has seemed to work for us. As far as Landon getting hit and bit, I have never heard of anything like that. Landon's never brought up anything about him getting bit. There's been a couple times where McKinley would go up and hit him or something, but it was playing. It's not her trying to hurt him. She's a 4-year-old kid trying to play with her, stepbrother. They're very close. McKinley and Landon are extremely close. We can never get McKinley to leave Landon's room because she always wants to be in there with him. The accusations for Jessica and I slapping and mistreating our kids is absolutely absurd. They go to their dad's house 50% of the time. There's never been any accusations that the kids have told their dad. Jessica and I and Jeff, which is Colton and McKinley's dad, we go to wrestling meets for the kids. We go to sporting events. We all co-parent just fine. There's never been a problem at all through that. So it's to me completely absurd at what she's trying to say right now. Landon's super healthy at my house. He goes to school every day. He comes home. They don't give out much homework but when he's attending school, he's doing amazing. He's happy when he comes home. There's a lot of days where he comes home and he's excited to go to school the next day, talking about, what they're going to do on Friday in class. The situation with Landon and his younger brother, I have done my best to make sure that Landon and Eli have been reunited, since Ashley hasn't taken the steps to do that herself. My girlfriend and I actually talk to Brock and Desiree quite often. We've taken Landon to Eli's football games. I have pictures when we did that. I feel like I've done everything necessary to help Landon out and get him to where he needs to be. And every time I turn around, Ashley is trying something else to disrupt the process and can't get aboard what is actually going on. Landon does need help. He needs a lot of help. And if she's got him into extra counseling, then I completely agree with that. I've been looking into that recently. I did not move from school district. I moved from Olson Road in Longview over to Kelso, which is still in district. Ashley kept trying to contact me outside of the Family Wizard app. So I blocked her phone number because in the parenting plan, the only contact to be made is through the Family Wizard app. And she kept going outside of that, contacting me. So I blocked her number because they brought the calls to Family Wizard. And I had thought I got it set up. And then she sent me a message saying that she still couldn't make phone calls to me. So then I went back through and I had to verify one more thing to get the calling set up. So the calling is set up on the Family Wizard app. And she was notified that we were moving because when Landon went to her house for Christmas break, she called me from a random number because I had her blocked. And Landon wasn't feeling good that morning. So since it was a short day, I told him he could stay home. And then she called me 5 minutes later asking to get him from a random number. And I told her, yeah, that's fine. And then she was asking me, oh, have you guys found a place to live yet? Or, asking me about where we're living. And I told her that, yeah, I had just applied for a place over in Kelso. And it was okay, cool, that's good. And that was where that got left at.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
One quick question. There was concerns raised by Ms. Keefe related to marijuana use. Can you address that?
Oh yeah, sorry. So it is in our parenting plan that because Ashley has an alcohol problem, the judge said it so when Landon is not in our care, we can drink alcohol or use marijuana. There's nothing illegal about it. And Landon sent a picture to Ashley because Ashley had him going around and snooping through things. And Landon found an empty one that was in the car in the glove box and took a picture of it empty, like vape pen, and sent it to his mom. So I seen that and I just asked him, I said, hey, what's going on? And he said, oh, well, I found this and sent a picture to her. So obviously she's talking to Landon about the court case because it's just a vape cartridge. You don't know what it is. And I never used it when Landon was in my care. And I've done everything exactly to the parenting plan as close as I can come to following it.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I think Mr. Alden, we'll hear from Ms. Keefe just briefly.
He has had 4 months to quit on his marijuana use. And like I said before, I smoked it for multiple reasons, not just his allegedly for sleeping, which he's never had a problem sleeping. Known him since I was 15 years old. He keeps calling me an alcoholic, but I am not. He has only proof from my ex-best friend who was being abused, and I brought that to attention of her fathers, the fathers of her children, when she would not leave an abusive relationship and it started getting abusive towards the children. And so she is against me. She's made false accusations. She has called the cops on me for drinking and driving. I talked to 3 police officers that knew I was not drinking and driving. There's nothing proving that I have an alcohol issue. I do not drink that often. I have a negative substance abuse, complete everything. I had a random UA when I took that, and it was negative. I had nothing in my system, no alcohol, no marijuana, nothing. Landon doesn't want to be there. He knows he doesn't want to be there. He's afraid of him. He does not have a relationship with him. Garrett is forcing a fatherly relationship with a 12-year-old child that he does not know. So he doesn't take him seriously. I smoked when Eli got taken, and that was one of the main reasons. Landon is aware he is 13 years old. There are kids smoking marijuana and knows what a cartridge looks like. I am not telling him to snoop around his dad's house because I know how he is. And so I do not want my child to be screamed at and mentally abused or anything more than what he's already getting. Garrett has a daughter because he keeps bringing up my child, who I am serving to get custody back. I'm going for 50-50 next week. Garrett has a daughter that he refuses to put into this at all, that he has not seen in several years. The only reason he saw him was because we got back together a couple years ago for a minute, and I helped him get his daughter back. He moved school district. He did not move from district, but he still moved from the district, which makes Landon have to switch schools. And again, I think the best interest. He does not do well in a big school. That is why I tried to homeschool him. I am aware that he is hard to get to go to school. He's puking in my car. When I, like, how am I supposed to send a child that is having a panic attack while he's puking and defecating in his pants because he has such bad anxiety to school? Garrett has literally left him at school after he is defecated in his pants from anxiety and had him go to a stranger's house and sit there while Garrett was fishing. Like, Garrett is not, Landon is not Garrett's top priority. I never asked about his housing. The only reason I knew was because Landon told me. I don't communicate with Garrett. We're not friends. I don't ask him any questions. And again, he told you that I was blocked. So how was I supposed to know he was moving? So that doesn't make any sense. Landon's failing mostly all of his classes. He needs help. He doesn't understand most of this. So there's no way for us to help him. I have videos of Landon having his panic attacks that they're horrible. They will be like 30 plus minutes long of him scream crying, saying he's scared of his dad, that he doesn't want to go there. He doesn't want to go to Huntington. A child threatened to shoot Landon and Garrett didn't even inform me. And the principal wouldn't even call me back because Garrett refused to put me on the school documents. So I wasn't even listed as a mother. His girlfriend that he breaks up with every other week was on there as a mother. Landon is seeing his original counselor and his core health counselor. Landon doesn't talk to Garrett about his mental issues because he doesn't trust him. He doesn't have that relationship with him. Garrett can say he does all he wants, but you can't come into his life at 6 years old, disappear again for over a year, and then only come back to threaten me about taking him from me, saying you're going to do the same thing that Eli got, like happened with my younger son. Like, it's just not, I don't know. And Landon has told me Jessica doesn't want him there. They've gotten into arguments because they were mad at Landon, and he's heard her say he doesn't want her there. Also, Landon says that Garrett says Jessica's baby's father is like, they're good and everything, but Landon says that Jessica continuously says that her husband or ex, whatever he is, child's father, they are abusive. So he says that Jessica says that they're abusive too. So they're just pointing the fingers at each other, apparently. And that appointment that he said that I showed up to, I made that appointment. He did not make that appointment. I made that appointment on Halloween. Again, I just really interest. I think that if Garrett's going to, I mean, he's still new at this point. Landon has no trust with him. I think that supervised visits or someone that can see him interact with Landon, because if he's lying, then he's lying, but he's never lied to me. He doesn't lie to me. So I think a professional seeing him interact with Landon is in Landon's best interest. My 12-year-old saying he wants to hurt himself. Like, I'm completely concerned. I think that's all.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Keefe.
Thank you.
Add like one quick thing. The only reason why I wasn't involved with Landon for a good majority of his life was because Ashley made a fake paternity test, and her and another man submitted.
I'm sorry, that's double jeopardy. That has already been, Garrett. You were back in his life from the time he was 5.
I'll make decisions, legal
Thank
decisions
you.
as to whether there's double jeopardy or other issues. I'll allow Mr. Alton to finish.
Okay.
there was a fake paternity test that was filed. So her accreditation already is completely invalid. There's CPS recommends that Landon is in my care. The guardian is that Landon is in my care. Landon has the CPS ladies
Mr.
call.
Alton, Mr. Alton, I'm just gonna, I'm gonna cut you off. I appreciate your desire to share additional information, but I think I have enough to address the issues that were raised in the motion. So I appreciate the interest in sharing additional, but I have enough information. So one thing in listening to the parties, you know, this case is relatively new to me. You all have been living this life, and you're having your child in life for much longer time than I've been exposed to it. So necessarily my understanding of all the issues is limited. It's not complete, and it's obviously imperfect. So one thing that stands out to me is that the child needs continual support and help. I think that's clear from what I'm hearing. Sounds like the stress and the anxiety is very difficult for him, and just encourage the parties to do your continued best to support and care for him and make his life as good as possible. There's allegations of physical and emotional abuse. Here, there's indications that there's, you know, there's screaming, there's hitting, there's biting. There's no physical evidence that Landon is being physically abused as far as like leaving marks on him. Mr. Alton indicates is that, you know, 95% of the time it's speaking with the children or timeout. 5% of the time, he indicated spanking on the backside. So we don't, while there's concerns raised by Ms. Keefe related to the emotional well-being of the child, it sounds like the emotional well-being of the child has been an issue, and it continues to be an issue, and may be continuing to be an issue in the future. Both parties are restricted from consuming alcohol or mind-altering substances during the time that they have the child. There's no restriction otherwise. Also, there's an indication that the educational decision-making is solely within the control of Mr. Alton. So I think it's always very important that parents be parents and not involve children in adult matters. It never, ever goes right for the child. It may seem like a good thing to do, but the child is a child, and it's overwhelming. It's too much for kids to handle. Two parents that child dearly loves, and they have allegiance to each. And then when one parent raises an issue and involves the child in that, it tears that child apart. It is inappropriate and exceptionally harmful for children to be involved in parental issues. And that's my sense here, is that that's a good possibility. Whether it's happening for sure, I don't know, but it sure seems to me that there's some inkling or some glimmering evidence that would suggest that that's occurring. In particular, information related to the pen, the vape pen, or what have you. So I would just caution, for what it's worth, to not involve the child in any adult matters, because it will literally rip them in half emotionally, and that's not fair to that child, and that can be absolutely prevented by not involving the child in adult matters, and that to really anything related to the parenting plan and the like. The other issue is that there was concerns related to the well-being of the child. You know, there's concerns about the TikTok video and the like, and sounds like there's additional support that existing and additional support that's happening through both the school and also CORE. So that's really good to hear that that's happening. And I think it's also important to note with these types of cases is that when children share information with one parent or the other parent, there's a natural inclination for children to tailor that information to the hearer or to the receiver of that information. And they know their parents pretty well. They know information that will be perceived in a certain way, and they try to please their parents. So overall, having reviewed the motion and heard from the parties, I'll make a finding that there's an insufficient basis to continue the restraining order. So the restraining order ends at this time. The August 31st, 2023 parenting plan is in effect and continues. So I'll draft an order that denies the motion, and then the parties will return to the parenting plan. And I think the parenting plan at this point applies in that Mr. Alton is the custodial parent and that the Ms. Keefe has the second and fourth weekends, Thursday after school to Monday at school. So I'm making an assumption that Landon is in school today and that we are the, pardon?
He's not in school today.
Obviously, that's a concern given the past track record and history in the case. So the child, Landon, let's see, today's the last week of January. So looks like the time is the father. So the child is to return to the father today after school. And or when Mr. Alton gets off work.
Okay.
I have a,
Ms. Keefe?
I don't understand how he can leave for a year. He can do false accusations. I've been raising him by myself for 12 and a half years. And then you guys just take my kid away. I don't understand this.
If that's a motion for reconsideration, I'll deny your motion for reconsideration. I'll draft that order, and then the exchange is to occur today after Mr. Alton is off work.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Your Honor.
That'll conclude the matter.
I'd agree, Your Honor.
I missed the first part of your statement.
And I my yesterday.
So you, Mr. Alton, your audio is cutting out. So you turn off your video, that will assist.
Yes. I had filed my papers, my response yesterday, and I was not able to get the papers served to Ashley. I tried last night and nobody was home. I was just curious if we could set that out a week.
Okay, so let's double check. So we're here in the matter of 22-3-49308, Garrett Alton and Ashley Keefe. Ms. Keefe, are you on the line today?
Yeah, I am.
Okay, all right, very good. So Ms. Keefe is here and Mr. Alton is present. So there is a couple of things that I was looking at. What I show or noted up for today is Ms. Keefe's motion for contempt that was filed some time ago, and I was looking to see if Mr. Alton had been served with a copy of that motion for contempt, and I didn't see service of that. Ms. Keefe, did you serve Mr. Alton a copy of that motion?
Yeah, he was served. I don't think I turned in a proof of service though.
Oh, I apologize, Ms. Keefe. Your volume was pretty low, so I wasn't able to clearly hear you. Could you repeat that?
Oh, sorry. I did serve him, but I don't believe that I turned in a proof of service.
Okay. So at this point, without service of the documents related to the motion for contempt, and again, this is the motion related to non-information or not cooperating exchange of information and an allegation of derogatory comments about the other parent. Without service of those documents upon Mr. Alton, I think we strike the matter, and then Ms. Keefe, once you've effectuated service on Mr. Alton or Mr. Alton, well, once he has those documents, then you could note it up for a hearing. But until that time, I don't want to keep on readdressing this when the service hasn't been effectuated. So, and the other option is Mr. Alton can agree to service, or he's already said he can tell me that he's got copies of everything, and we could proceed. So, those are kind of the options that we have. So, Mr. Alton, have you received a copy of the motion for contempt?
Yes, I have.
Okay, and are you do you want to move forward today related to that, or do you want to continue it so you can submit additional information?
I was hoping to submit more information. I I got served late on them, and I've been getting up for work at 1 a.m. and getting home at like 6 or 7 at night. And so I honestly kind of rushed through it, and I was hoping to have just a little bit more time if I could.
Okay. And so you have been served, and Ms. Keefe, you just need to file that declaration of service. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Again, Ms. Keefe, I apologize. The volume's pretty low, and could you repeat that?
Yeah, sorry. I don't know what is going on.
Okay. All right. So it looks like, so if service has been effectuated and all that needs to occur is the declaration or affidavit of service to be filed, and also Mr. Alton to file a reply. I feel comfortable in setting the matter over so we can address the issues that have been presented in that motion. There's currently a motion to compel, which is noted for the 6th of March. That's 2 weeks from now. If the parties are comfortable, we could set it to that date and take care of those two matters on that same date, March 6th at 9 a.m. Mr. Alton, how does that look for you?
That should work fine.
Okay, Ms. Keefe, how does March 6th at 9 a.m. look for you?
That looks good for me.
Okay. All right. So on that date, on March 6th at 9 a.m., we will hear the motion related to contempt on the cooperating. Next matter is Garrett Alton and Ashley Keith, cause number 2234930308. Garrett Alton, are you on the line?
Yes, I'm here.
Welcome, Mr. Alton. Thanks for your patience. Ashley Keefe, are you on the line?
I'm here.
All right, thank you. And Heather Kell, are you on the line?
I am, Your Honor.
Garden. All right, thank you, Ms. Kell. Thanks for your patience also. We're here on a guardian ad litem motion to compel payment from Ms. Keefe, and also Ms. Keefe's motion for contempt related to failure to relay information and derogatory comments. Let's address the first issue from Ms. Kell on the motion for payment. Ms. Kell?
Yes, good morning, Your Honor. Thank you. We entered into an agreement, Ms. Keefe and I. It was a payment plan agreement for the remaining $750 on her balance that she owed toward her guardian ad litem fee. She was struggling to make that payment. I tried to be very patient and communicated with her frequently. When she stopped communication with me following the filing of the report, I reached out and said, if you're in need of a payment plan, let's discuss that. She stated that she did. She signed a payment plan agreement with me, and then following the hearing, she then stopped all communication. I've reached out several times since then and have had no communication from her regarding what she still owes on that balance. I'm still open to working with her, but I do need to see some form of movement from her in that direction.
And the balance is 750?
Correct, yes.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Keefe?
I'm sorry, I haven't made any payments. I got put on to L&I. I hurt both of my elbows, and so I wasn't making very much. And I make like I was making almost $700 a month payment in child support for my other son. So I haven't been having the money for it. But I do intend to pay her back or pay for her services. It's just taking a very, very long time.
Did you communicate any of that information to Ms. Kell?
I didn't get an email. I don't really look at my emails, and so I kind of just was so stressed out I didn't really even realize any of it. So I didn't.
Okay. So I'm inclined to enter a judgment with interest.
Okay.
Ms. Kell?
That would be helpful. Thank you, Your Honor. I do want to remind Ms. Keefe, I have texted her. She's welcome to text me or call me on the phone. We've had communication that way in the past. So keeping up in contact is really what prevents me from having to take moves like this.
Okay, thank you.
So Ms. Keefe, I'm going to enter a judgment against you in behalf of Ms. Kell. It'll be charged at 12% interest. That's a statutory rate. So that'll go on credit reports and the like. And so it's in your best interest to pay that off and pay it off quickly, because that 12% interest is super high and can really increase that amount. So I'll sign
Do I just
that.
pay her? Sorry.
Go ahead.
Do I just pay her through our little payment thing, or do I pay the court?
When a judgment is entered, the payment is given to the other party, to Ms. Kell, and then once she's received that, then she would enter a satisfaction of judgment document and saying that the document, that the payment has been made.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Ms. Kell, any other comments related to that?
No, not at this time. Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. 750?
Correct.
All right, very good. All right, so that concludes that portion of the hearing. The second portion is Ms. Keefe's motion related to the contempt. And I just want to double check with Ms. Keefe, did you serve a copy of those documents on Mr. Alton?
I was hoping that we could just dismiss this portion of it. I was wondering if me and Garrett could maybe sit down and talk, because I feel like we've gotten along good enough that we could settle on a 50-50 arrangement and get this figured out. And we used to be really good friends before this court stuff happened. I just feel like we could talk and figure that out and just stop the contempts and I would like to drop my contempt.
Mr. Alton, any response related to Ms. Keefe's motion to dismiss the motion for contempt?
No.
It's dismissed.
Thank you.
Both allegations that were filed, I'm dismissing both.
Thank you.
I'll submit a document that summarizes the dismissal, and I'll file that. If either party needs a copy, you can check with the clerk's office in roughly 2 to 3 days and get a copy of that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Mr. Alton, any questions on your end?
No, that's it, Your Honor.
Okay, thanks everybody for your time today. That'll conclude.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.